Okay. We are going to discuss about focalization in video games and how it relates with narrative aids and cinematic techniques and gaming experience. To begin with, for Niederhoff, focalization is defined as the selection or restriction of narrative information in relation to the experience and knowledge of the narrator, the characters, or other more hypothetical entities of the storyboard. Since it is related with conveyed information, it impacts the creation of meaning and narrative tension building, and also it determines the roles of the narrative entities, and it affects the reader's position, the reader's or the viewers or the player's positioning and level of participation. In literature, there is a strong connection between the narrative agents, the actors who create the events, the focalizer who selects the events to be narrated, and the point of view from which they will be narrated, and the narrator as the voice who communicates the story to the readers. In other media, such as pictorial narratives and cinematic narratives and video games, the connection between
I'm sorry
the
to interrupt.
narrative...
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
If you are changing your slides, we cannot see it because we still see the title slide. Okay?
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Now?
Keep it that way.
Can you
Thank
see?
you.
Do you see it now?
Yes, go on.
Okay. Okay, so let's continue. So in other media, such as pictorial narratives, cinema, and video games, this connection between the narrative agents is more loose. And in cinema, techniques such as voiceovers, the presence of explicit narrator, or cinematic shots are used to help the viewer to identify the focalizing and narrating agents. In the absence of such techniques, a film may seem deceptively unnarrated, and the viewer is called to assume a more active role in the construction of the narrative. In video games, the break of the fourth wall, the blending of the physical space with the world space and the game space, the embodiment of the player, the interactivity and user control of the virtual camera blur the boundaries between the narrative entities and the roles. Also, new strategies for focalization arise. Therefore, there is a need for the development of a medium-specific focalization theory. Towards this, we propose an extended typology of focalization based on Nigel and Thorne theories, which we adopt almost intact for the first two types of spatial point of view and actional point, while we combine Thorne's and Smith's points for ideological point of view. And finally, we propose a fourth type, the sensorial point of view, based on Smith's perceptual and linguistic planes, which we adapt to video game characteristics. Thorne defines point of view as the spatial position from which the game space is presented audiovisually. Based on the spatial relation of the virtual camera, the avatar, and the position of the player in the video game space, both Nigel and Thorne discern 3 degrees. The objective, where the camera is not connected to the avatar, the semi-subjective, where the camera is connected to the movement of the avatar, and the subjective, where the camera coincides with the position of the avatar. As for actional perspective, Nigel describes it as the position from which action can be taken and the way it will be taken in. Based on player embodiment, how and where interaction occurs, 3 degrees can also be discerned. Subjective, where interaction occurs through the avatar, semi-subjective, where interaction with world space is connected to the avatar, but the player can also interact with the game space, and objective, where interaction with world space is not connected to a single avatar. Based on Thorne, ideological perspective can be described as a combination of the values of the character and the player. Based on the dominant system of values, three types are observed: player's ideological point of view, characters, and a shared ideological point of view. Some tools and methods that lead to users' ideological reposition include characterization, design of content and rules, affordances and mechanics, and dialogue system design. Finally, we define sensorial perspective as a character's unique view as formed from his multisensory perception of the world, reality, and events, and the ways in which nonverbal sensory elements compose the character's sensory semiotic system that determine his expressive style. Sensorial perspective can be further divided to perceptual, as how a narrative entity perceives the fictional world and events, and expressional as the representation of how an entity communicates thoughts, emotions, etc. Based on this extended typology, we analyzed a number of video games. What Remains of Edith Finch abounds in focalization techniques. Structured as a compilation of stories, the game employs techniques such as environmental design and stylistic variations as indirect characterization for each of the main characters and for player ideological and sensorial alignment with them. For instance, Odin's story is visualized and experienced through a viewmaster, and Barbara's story through the vignettes of a comic book. Also, mechanics and affordances are used to provide insights to each character's internal state. In each story, differentiations in game controls are used. For example, in Lewis' story, the player has to execute repetitive actions, such as chopping salmons, while the story unfolds. This creates a sense of frustration to the player, similar to what the character experiences, serving thus as an internal focalization technique. In Edith Finch, non-anthropomorphic spatial representations are also used. In Molly's story, the protagonist shapeshifts from human to a cat to an owl, then to a shark and a human-eating sea monster. These shape-shifting effects come as hallucinations after Molly being poisoned and serve as internal focalization, revealing her thoughts and feelings. In the case of Stray, non-anthropomorphic spatial representation combined with interaction design are used to match with how a cat perceives and acts in a human-constructed environment. Changes in optical point of view in observe mode are used to enhance the sensorial perspective. Also, changes in controls, for instance, when the feline protagonist is captured in a bag, are used as internal focalization technique. In everything, shifts on the identity of the avatar are conveyed through alterations in optical point of view and the representation of space with changes in scale. Perspective shifts is a common technique in video games, either automatic or player control, such as in the case of Elder Scrolls. In Total War, a combination of changes in point of view and actional perspective are used for different actions. The map view is used for strategic choices, while overland view with free movement is used for real-time battles. In the case of Discord Noir and The Beast Within, in addition to changes from first to third perspective, the use of visuals indicate changes in the corporeal state of the character and his sensorial perspective. Concerning players' ideological reposition, in Red Dead Redemption, players have control over their ideological stance as their behavior affects the character honor. Similarly, in Planetscape, players' choices determine the character's ideological standpoint, and in Soma, indirect characterization serves for players' ideological reposition. Also, generalized as it may be, we can observe two trends in video game narratives. Those that rely on cinematic techniques and feeling, such as in the case of Alan Wake, and those that use techniques adapted to the specificities of games, such as Disco Elysium. In the first case, emphasis is given on the cinematic feeling with consequent restricted agency, while on the second, point of action, ideological point of view, and sensorial point of view replace optical point of view and conventional cinematic focalization techniques. As a conclusion, we found that there is an interrelation of focalization techniques with the gaming experience, user interaction mechanics, and control settings. The proposed typology can be applied to a wide range of video games and may be useful for an holistic analysis of gaming experience, as it can be applicable in various components of the experience. Finally, for the next steps of our research, we tend to enrich the proposed focalization model and further extend the framework to encompass a study on interactive media and interactive art in general. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Natalia. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, yeah, there is one question.
So I would like to ask, first of all, congratulations on your research. I would like to ask, do you think that a shift in focalization can be used as a tool of expression for the designer, or alternatively, when the change is up to the player, can it be used as a means of expression for the player themselves in a collaborative environment?
We haven't thought of including collaborative environments for the time being, but surely it's very interesting to do so in the next steps of our research. Yes, I think focalization can be an expressive tool for the designer, for game designer, and we have included, we have proposed, we have actually added a category which relates with expression and how a user as a character may perceive and express his thoughts and feelings and so on. And yes, I think it may work towards this direction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia.